Welcome to the Intrazone, a show about the Microsoft 365 intelligent intranet. I'm Chris McNulty, and here today with my Partner Edition co-host, Mark Cashman.
Why, thank you, Chris. I think we have a tasty show, and I am very excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. As we've said many times, Microsoft's mission is to deliver solutions to help individuals and organizations achieve more. And as always, we don't do that alone. Each month, we sit down with one of our partners who also help us deliver solutions and services to our customers.
Yes, on this next episode of the Intrazone, this is our Microsoft Partner Plus Customer Series. We're talking with Jason Burian of KnowledgeLake and Ty Iden of the new Belgium Brewing, who is a KnowledgeLake customer.
Today, we'll focus on a growing company that is looking, like many of you are, at challenges with their business process. How can they run their operations and scale them nationally across a growing portfolio of beers, multiple brewing facilities, and also tied to their core beliefs around environmental stewardship, making world-class products, and of course, having fun. And in saying that, Mark, why did we schedule this during the pandemic? Shouldn't this have been one of the first customer visits we did live to go right to the brewery?
Honestly, I think when people hear the conversation we had, you'll probably hear in our voices that want to be every once in a while, whetting the appetite with one of their tasty beers. I think you'll probably hear that. I know one of the fundamental questions beyond the want of a nice tasty beverage over this nice discussion was that we wanted to dig into when do you really realize that you're using too much paper, both for the environmental impact and the business inefficiencies that it brings. So, you can imagine their employees rifling through file cabinets, storage boxes, and all these stacks of paper, just looking for that one or many necessary documents, just doesn't equate to efficiencies of time. So I really hope that this episode, we're going to dig into that and hear it through their lens.
It's interesting. When we were preparing this, Mark, one of the questions I had, and I'd love to get your take on this, is, in your own life, professional or personal, where do you still use paper?
That's a great question. We've been kind of digitally transformed for a while in the context of work, but even in work, I have maybe two answers for you. One is I have a notebook that I still keep from 2009, which means I don't use it a ton. But when I do, it's really just like something in my brain says, I should jot that down. And I have a pen handy. And it's fun to look back on. And one of the first notes in the 2009 era was a one-on-one meeting that I had with Arpan Shah, who was my first manager in the world of SharePoint. So it's fun to go back through. But the other thing, I actually use a lot of sticky notes, if that counts, because sometimes I just want to jot a note, put it on a package, with somebody's address, or make a sticky note and hand it off when I send something as a note to a physical object, or sometimes I send swag. So not very often. I have to ask, what about you?
Well, it's interesting. Occasionally there will be the quick phone call and you need to write down someone's number. And in our home, the only paper we have that's convenient might be the back of another piece of mail or an envelope or something that's around the house. It's pretty rare. And I'm somewhat embarrassed to admit, I've been really focused on digital note taking and using tools like OneNote, et cetera, but goodness knows, I think the crutch that I fall back on most often isn't even a pen and paper, it's Notepad.
I think that's you and Mary Jo Foley. She always talks about her use of Notepad. If we remove paper out of the equation, which is the real crux of what they wanted to accomplish in working with KnowledgeLake, New Belgium then started to do what? Leverage more of SharePoint for processing and routing. But, when you look at it from that perspective, if people say, we got to dump the paper and move into more digital work stream, what does that mean to you for the benefits and how we realize that through both our partners and some of our base technology?
Well, it's interesting. We've been talking a lot, especially with Viva, about digital transformation and what hybrid work and remote work have meant. That we, I think, need to go back to some of the core principles in digital transformation from a few years ago, which is how do you not just convert a process to something that's electronic, but how do you rethink it? It's one thing to take a piece of paper and image it, and instead of having it in the file cabinet, have it in a document library. And so people are looking at something on screen instead of in the real world. But what does that really mean? And really thinking through, how do I pull data out of it and make it usable? How do I take advantage of things like versions or search or being able to set up a process? Does that actually change what you do fundamentally? Because, one of the nice advantages of digital technology is it almost like a Star Trek transporter. Like in the days of paper, you would have to mail something to someone. Or people need to be in the same location to be able to collaborate in the same physical piece of paper. And once you remove those barriers, remember, it really opens up opportunities to do things completely differently, to engage different stakeholders, to cut out some of the middle steps, and also to be a better steward of the planet's resources. I mean, a lot of trees have gone into a lot of bankers' boxes, sitting in a lot of warehouses that are never going to get looked at again. From the prep work that we've done with New Belgium, I know that environmental stewardship is a key value of theirs, and so I think there's just tremendous opportunity. So we should probably bring them in here in a chat about what they've been doing with KnowledgeLake.
I was just going to say, let us be like the Lorax and speak for the trees in the context of having Jason and Ty speak for what they're doing in their brewing of solutions between KnowledgeLake and New Belgium Brewing.
Today on the Intrazone, we're digging in deeply, or we're drinking deeply to learn more from our customer and partner. We have Ty Iden from New Belgium Brewing, and he's joined by Jason Burian from KnowledgeLake today. Gentlemen, welcome to the Intrazone.
Hey, thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah, really excited. Thank you.
Before we kind of get into asking each of you to talk about who you are, what your role is for your organization, and this wonderful world of Microsoft technology, Mark uncovered a little bit of detail about you, Ty, something called the Ramshorn Porsche Rally in Bozeman, Montana.
Surprise.
Can you confirm or deny that you're affiliated with this?
I can confirm we're an MPO, and we do a driving rally once a year, and I'm co-director of this event, and it's about 35 vintage Porsches, and we drive about 1,500 miles over 5 days throughout various parts of the country. Every year is a different route, and it's coming up fast here. I'm pretty excited about it.
That sounds much more exciting. The closest I've ever come to that is in high school. There was one of those family driving scavenger hunts, and I was a senior, so they let me drive my dad's car with my brothers and sisters. And it was in a town that we knew, but I still felt the need to hit it over every bridge, streets of San Francisco style. And I had to complain complete ignorance the next day when my dad asked how I had smashed the oil pan of his car and leaving all the oil on the driveway. When you go over a bridge that has a steep angle at top 60 miles an hour, a little bumping is going to happen.
Absolutely, especially in some vintage cars.
For clarification, are we talking Death Race 2000, Mad Max, or is it a little bit more refined and gentlemanlike?
Definitely much more gentlemanlike. Certainly not Cannonball Run, but we definitely have a lot of fun over the course of the rally and get to see some really nice country. So, not to say that we don't put a little gas on here.
I was just glad to have seen that, and I imagine top down, hair or not hair blowing in the wind, all that. It sounded really fun.
It's a blast.
Let's talk a little bit of business before tech. Certainly we'll get into the unique offering from KnowledgeLake and obviously the kind of pain points that were alleviated, obviously, once we got beyond. One of the things that we also learned, there's a lot of focus on renewable energy, regenerative agriculture, reducing carbon footprint. What specifically about this project was the business outcome that really you took on that I think applies to that broader notion that the company's going for?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is very much a part of New Belgium's roots. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time with environmental sustainability, and we really believe that business can be a force for good. Even just this year, we became the first carbon neutral beer in the U.S. with Fat Tire. So we're really excited about that, and we're hoping to do that with all of our production by 2030. So there's a ton more stuff that we're doing there, and sustainability is very much a part of who we are. And with this project, there's a certain amount of waste involved with paper. And as we have evolved more into the digital world, we're trying to reduce as much of that waste as possible. we're actually now, along with some of our other climate work, we're a certified zero waste brewery as well, which we're pretty proud of. There are certain parameters that fit into that I can't get all into. But yeah, with this project with KnowledgeLake, we are super excited to reduce our paper footprint and do the best that we could there, along with aligning to the business goals and achieving, better business process and solving some of those problems.
If you think about it, Belgian style brewing is, some of the oldest green tech out there. Like, why create new yeast when you can just open up the vat and let a little wild yeast get into what you're doing?
Absolutely. Some of my favorite beers involve wild yeast, and just that old mentality and traditional brewing cases where you just sort of let the air and open up the barn and let that yeast from outside make some of the best beer in this world, I think.
When you go to the New Belgium Brewery, which is where my relationship with the organization started, and you take their tour, which I've taken, I think, Ty, I'm at 6 times now. They talk a lot about renewable energy and they reuse grains. So all the spent grains that they use, they put into trucks, and local farmers take them back to their farms and use them to feed their cows, and all of the stuff that they provide for their employees. It's a pretty impressive, inspiring organization.
So Jason, it certainly sounds like you were a customer of New Belgium before New Belgium was a customer of KnowledgeLake?
100%. 100%.
But to keep it on the commercial level, could you talk a little bit about KnowledgeLake, what you do, and before we get into exploring kind of what KnowledgeLake and New Belgium have been able to brew together here?
So KnowledgeLake is a software company headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. Our beer history also runs deep. 4-time Microsoft Partner of the Year. We really built our business on a super strong partnership with Microsoft. Started in the world of SharePoint, has expanded to Microsoft 365 and Azure. Our sort of credo in life is helping organizations with their most important content-centric processes, helping them through their digital transformation, helping them gain efficiencies, all kind of centered around the investment that they've already made and love in Microsoft.
At the core of New Belgium Brewing, there is this notion of, wanting to have a small footprint, large impact, and that they are coming to you, with the ask for solution to some of the issues and problems they're trying to solve. Before you pitch the solution, what are some of the things that you learned early on that then directed you to, pitch in a certain way or apply the technology in a certain way?
I think it starts with real pain, like real business problems that their users are encountering every day. When I first met with New Belgium, we met with their director of AP Finance, and she sat me down and brought me into this beautiful conference room, offered me a beer, which I didn't want to be rude, so I, of course, accepted, and then started just talking about all of the things that were impacting her department and their paper problems and their philosophies on how they run their business. And I think it really started with understanding the pain that they were dealing with. They were a growing, exploding company at the time when we first sort of got engaged. A lot of that growth, I think some of the forethought was, look, if we keep growing at this rate, this problem is going to get exponential, and it's going to be something that we're not going to be able to handle, and also something that doesn't align with our sort of core company beliefs.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add to that. In working with KnowledgeLake over the years now, in that initial discussions and conversations that we were having, it was very much like that. I never felt like we were being sold on something. It was more like, here, let's have a conversation and let's try to work through it together, which I really appreciated. And I know the brewery really appreciated it, especially finance and accounting. And, I think that's a true testament to some of the alignment that we have with our partnership with KnowledgeLake, and that it feels like, our core values are similar to between our businesses, and it's more about a conversation and partnering through some of those challenges together, which is awesome.
If we add a little bit more yeast to the conversation to understand a little bit more around what you were really targeting to take advantage of, we know that there is this initial invoicing process that you had, of course, in place. And you mentioned it was, a little bit heavy on paper, a little bit heavy on manual processes. But can you describe a little bit about what was the current state and then where you really started to see the benefits of a KnowledgeLake solution?
Yeah, now we're a few years back. And, before all of this, we were about to build another brewery across the country. And since then, we have other parts of the business that have grown. And so we knew that we really needed to solve for that challenge of really taking advantage of the enterprise and combining this marriage between KnowledgeLake and SharePoint, because we've been a long-time user of SharePoint since MOS 2007. And so in that, what I call the perfect marriage is that we have, been using SharePoint to manage unstructured, structured content. And, at the time, we were more on the unstructured side, and we really needed to bridge that gap into a true ECM, and also needed to streamline that business process with not only finance and accounting, but a bunch of other departments as well around environmental health and safety and human resources and legal, where we needed to, really address all these manual processes around, emailing things back and forth and printing paper and putting it in a file cabinet and, all these things that don't make a lot of sense when you're a national brewery and moving into more of an international place. And it just didn't seem like what a world-class business should be doing. And so with KnowledgeLake, when we started that project, it was more than just getting files out of a file cabinet. It was more about streamlining the business process. And since then, we've evolved even more. We really feel like we've become more of a process-driven organization overall. And that really aids in the use of our technology in solving those business problems.
Jason, I know it's really tempting when you start hearing about goals and business problems to kind of jump in and start proposing a solution based on, your technology and your experience. But what are some of the things that you like to explore with a customer like New Belgium to get more insight and awareness of what needs to be considered before you start crafting a solution?
I think it starts with really understanding outcomes. What is a win for the organization? What is a win for the department? What is a win for the end users, right? Sometimes those aren't always the same things. As an organization, they might have a goal to reduce their on-premises data footprint, get to the cloud. But the head of AP Finance, as Ty said, they're opening a whole new brewery. So as a manufacturing organization, which New Belgium basically is, they do a lot of buying. And so a whole new brewery means double everything, double ingredients, double bottles, double labels, double the spending for everything. And so how do you handle basically double the work without doubling your human capital? And so I think it really starts for me with understanding what does success look like, right? How do we know we've won? And then working backwards from that.
One of my favorite times, if I get to, sometimes it's in retrospect, of looking over somebody's shoulder or a group of people gathering together to understand what are we doing? Not necessarily what is the technology that we're using or need, but what are we actually doing? And Ty, you had mentioned emailing and going to the file cabinet, but really looking at an actual person or people or group. What are they doing? And it's nice to have a partner like KnowledgeLake, who of course has technology that will be part of the solution, but is also going to help you review, articulating what you actually do that still needs to happen. It's just then architecting a solution that can optimize things, remove the manual, make it easier to search and find certain things. And I kind of want to dig into that next level of what's now in place, even if it's not fully rolled out to the entire company or it's not yet, applicable to the new brewery. What are some of those decisions that then are now implemented? How is KnowledgeLake's technology being leveraged? Where are the pain points that have been removed? Can we get into just a few specifics, maybe starting with Jason with what KnowledgeLake tech was put in place and what of it is being leveraged?
So just a tag on your earlier point, I really think the sitting behind a user and watching what they're doing is a really critical step in building products that users love, which we pride ourselves on. It's been challenging in the last 18 months to get out and visit customers. Hopefully we'll be able to do more of that soon. But, we really love going on site and connecting at that level. I think it really drives a significant amount of insights. To just carry on, what we implemented is, Ty, this was a number of years ago, right? We started with SharePoint on premise, but since have moved to both the KnowledgeLake Cloud and Microsoft 365. KnowledgeLake covers a couple of different areas. First, collecting all the content, the invoices, both the paper ones and the digital ones that arrive in email, classifying them, identifying what they are. Are they an invoice, a credit memo, a bill back? Those types of things, sort of identifying what they are, what vendor they're from, what the invoice number, what's the amount being asked for, and then storing those in SharePoint Online to make them searchable, to be able to do targeted searching so that when somebody picks up the phone and calls New Belgium and says, hey, I'm looking for payment on this invoice, they can quickly find it. And then after that, driving downstream workflows, approvals, coding, and then the integration with the line of business system, which is their Dynamics platform. Rather than having somebody manually type in all that data that we've pulled off of that invoice, all that data gets fed into their Dynamics system so that it can be included in the next check run.
Yeah, definitely. We're doing all of that today and all in the cloud, which has been great. A nice change there. And I just wanted to add on to what Mark was saying too, and that this helped us really cut through a lot of that churn and chatter is what I call it, when you have all that email and the manual process and really just trying to streamline the business. Really with this project, there was also sort of this component of user adoption and making sure that we were using the right tools in the right way, meaning, we didn't want to just upload a file into a library and start putting some metadata on it. It was more than that. It was more about getting these files with the proper metadata to the right people in a meaningful way to cut down the back and forth, making sure that we're approving these invoices in a faster way, making sure that people could get paid on time. And then also, with the addition of some of these awesome new innovations that are coming to the table from both Microsoft and KnowledgeLake, we're able to streamline more through automation, especially with what Jason was talking to about utilizing RPA and robotic process automation and kind of having what I call these like sideline integrations between apps, where you can still achieve that automation without having a direct tie-in for that integrations that we've, been putting into place here with KnowledgeLake. It's just really helping us to get at the right information to the right people faster in a more meaningful way.
Ty, help me understand kind of where you are in your progress with this solution. So I think you're putting it in place and you're seeing some good initial results. Would love to kind of talk about what you've seen so far and what's coming next.
Yeah, especially around the invoicing process, right? Or accounts payable. I mean, we're doing a ton of automation and OCR and machine learning with the KnowledgeLake solution to really streamline the speed of getting documents into the system, but also reliability on that the data is correct, right? Because we want to make sure that we're getting thousands of these invoices potentially every month. And our accounts payable department is very busy, as we all are. And as they're getting invoices in, they don't want to be spending time trying to understand if the invoice date and invoice amount are correct. And they want to make sure that it's getting routed to the right people for approval and that it's going to end up in our system so that it's safe and secure and can be searched and audited against if needed. And all of those things really matter with the KnowledgeLake solution. So we can get that OCR, we can have the machine learning on new invoices that are coming into the system to pull all of that metadata. So now we're just putting it in front of our accounts payable person to say, yeah, that all looks great. Send it on its way. And it becomes much faster. That experience then kind of plays back into that user adoption and that they don't even know necessarily the long-term story or the outcome of that file. It's what matters right then and there is that we're getting the right data and it's moving along in its process and we're able to make our vendors and our customers happier. So that's always a plus as well.
Jason, from a similar perspective, if you put on the awareness that New Belgium has been a SharePoint customer for a while, obviously there's this now move to the cloud and taking advantage of the cloud more. And with that future look at the point in time between KnowledgeLake and New Belgium, where would you propose that they go next, knowing maybe a little bit more around the roadmap and what's coming from Microsoft? Is there a blend of, the guidance of optimizing the invoicing processes and system and use of it to then what's next based on what what's coming and what they might need next?
So I would say that every time I talk to Ty, he's already rolled out another department. So I think he's got that well in hand. But I think there's the next step on New Belgium's sort of digital evolution is taking advantage of data and driving more insights and analysis of data. So being able to merge data from structured systems like Dynamics or their production management system merged with unstructured data from documents to really gain insights into the business. Being able to say, okay, well, I know how many invoices I paid in the last 90 days. That's pretty easy to understand. How do I understand what I'm going to pay in the next 90 days? Right? What's upcoming so that I can do cash flow planning, so that I can have insights in what's taking longer than I expected. And to build on what Ty was saying about being able to provide information to a team member when they need, it in the right contextual way, I think lines up with where Microsoft's going from a Viva perspective and knowledge and insights and making sure that team members throughout New Belgium, whether that's NAP or production or the warehouse, that they have access to information, more than information, they have access to knowledge.
Yeah, that's been the fun part of this is that, we are able to take this a little bit further now. I'm working more and more every day with data and automation. And so with that, we're able to utilize things with Power BI more, and we're taking all of these pieces of data as they're coming in around documents or other types of content, and we're able to give our business better insights to what's going on with either the business process or as it relates to any part of that data that's coming in. And so we're seeing opportunities every day now where we just don't have enough time to implement all the solutions that we would like to put into place. But even just recently around ingredient approvals, and we get deliveries from maltsters every day, and we want to make sure that there's certain data and statistics around those malt deliveries, and we're able to pull values from the documents that they send with these shipments with KnowledgeLake and can then make actions from that data, right? So we can either trigger some sort of response or notify certain quality assurance departments when this new shipment comes in, and in a fast way, so that it's not just, as the piece of paper gets put into somebody's inbox at work and then, it eventually ends up on their desk. It's more like, hey, this is happening. We can even get the paperwork before the shipment gets dropped off and validate those key data points and know that that's meeting our quality assurance and that we want to accept that shipment. I mean, even just simple things like that is a big deal. And we're coming across those types of scenarios every day. And that's directly tied to making beer in my mind. And I think that's a true testament to putting these types of solutions into play.
I want to pitch a question to Chris, but it really is on behalf of Ty and Jason. I think it builds on what you were sharing. Chris, with your old consultant hat on and your new Viva hat on, specifically topics or just anything else that resonates. And I want to be real clear, we're not selling, we're not pitching, we're just bringing some data points together. Chris, how would you, after hearing, all of what we just got in the last couple minutes, how would you spin that back to where Viva, could be something that really would be advantageous at some point in the future?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways that we really see Viva accelerating content and bringing velocity to turning it into knowledge is really around the realms we're talking about. Because if we know more about the content, if it's a higher quality but a set of content because it's been brought through the right processes, it's been groomed, it's been digitized, we've added metadata, that makes it more useful to the ways that people consume knowledge, whether it's through search or through kind of the product capabilities of Viva Topics. All of that just is not just transformational, it's also foundational to what we think is a great employee experience.
And my non-consultant ad here, and hopefully it's just more of the broader value of everything you've already been doing, even if it's not Viva in your future or immediate future, the guidance and the real nature of how things build upon each other, you're already doing some of that lifting already by working with KnowledgeLake. Obviously, where the content is helps a lot to be able to take advantage of the new tech. But a lot of what the Viva offering is through one lens is that. It takes advantage of what you've already done and then enhances it or gives you that option to do something then further. But I just really like the thought of where you're at right now, just to wrap up a few numbers that I know are part of the case study that you did with KnowledgeLake. 80% less paper, 75% reduction in time spent on those manual processes. I can only imagine how when you roll that out to different departments, the second brewery, whatever it is at scale, you're really optimizing that. And my hope is that you're seeing that directly, but also felt through the company. Is there a way that you might frame it, Ty, that is, we are doing less of X and now we're spending more time on Y? Is there anything like that would be just a way to frame it to close out an understanding on what you've achieved so far?
If we can give any part of, for the example in this use case, right, is our accounts payable team. They have more meaningful work right now that they would like to be doing and could be doing. So if they can spend less time trying to do manual things like copy and paste or taking information and sending an email back and forth with somebody else to try to get maybe not enough detail that they would have needed in order to pay or approve an invoice, that is what we're aiming to do across the business, right? It's not just finance and accounting. We're trying to streamline really that communication process, because I find a lot of times it's, in my world, I'm really looking at collaboration, communication, and that now is much more than just sort of that fluff word of, yeah, we're streamlining internal communications. It really is today about data and automation and giving people time back in their day to do more meaningful work. And so we're trying to do that as much as possible. And that allows us, again, it frees up just more time to hang out and have a beer instead of thinking about always making improvements to the business and solving business problems. So we like that part of the story.
I think that's really important when we think about the mission that impels us to invest the ways we have. It's really focusing on improving, we say employee well-being, but it's also the quality of people's workday and their personal day. I think what's wonderful about your product is, and the way that you go about it, there are ways that it can improve the quality of every part of the day.
I'm also thinking how it might improve the next time, especially in person, if we find ourselves at a share pint. I could see lots of benefits to New Belgium and the conversations and the drink that might flow. I also just wanted to let Ty know I was aware of Fat Tire and the 1554, but the one that caught my eye that I definitely want to kind of put on order for the next share pint is a fresh bottle of the Action Reaction. That one caught my eye.
Yeah, we're making some fun new stuff every year. I think something like 30 new beers or more every year. And this last week, we released our first hard seltzer. So go check out some Fruit Smash, is what it's called. You can find it pretty much anywhere in the country right now, and we're pretty excited about it.
Ty, any plans on allowing the old Aggie outside of Colorado anytime soon?
Oh, I've been pushing for it all the time. We do have our other lager called Mountain Time, and I do think you should try that if you hadn't yet. And that might be making its way towards you sometime soon.
For those that don't know, New Belgium makes this beer called Old Aggie. It's a lager, and it's unbelievably delicious, but you can only get it in Fort Collins, and it's amazing beer, and they just selfish.
So maybe SharePoint Saturday Denver with a little trip up north. What do you think, Chris?
I think Colorado and Montana are certainly two of the finest places I can imagine to go have a cold one. So
you guys are welcome anytime, and we'd love to have you, and always a good adventure, the brewery.
That's great to hear. Ty, where can people follow up for more information about New Belgium, about road rallies or just to follow you online?
Yeah. www.newbelgium.com has really a ton of great information around what we're doing right now as a business, the beers that we're putting out, the environmental and climate change work that we're doing, and everything we're doing around equality. There's a ton of great stuff on there. So I would encourage you to check out that. And then, of course, while you're doing that, you should be sipping on some of our favorite beer of yours, and definitely check that out.
Jason, is there anything specific, KnowledgeLake, links that we can share, events that you'll be speaking at, or just in general, if you have, a blog that you've written of your favorite New Belgium beers, anything we can share with the audience?
Just knowledgelake.com. There's great stories and videos about New Belgium, as well as some of our other customers that have had a similar experience. So I think that's a good place to start. Follow me on Twitter, actuallybiz. I talk a lot about beer there.
That's definitely going to be something I know our audience will appreciate. Jason, it's wonderful having KnowledgeLake as being a preferred member of our Content Services Partner Program. It's a relationship that we value. And Ty, we not just love the product, we love the relationship we have with New Belgium. And anything we can do to help you service more customers, each of you, I think there's benefits to all. So thank you so much for coming in and joining us today on the Intro Zone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
It is always wonderful to hear what people are doing with our technology and really moving their worlds forward. And so it's really great to hear what New Belgium Brewing with KnowledgeLake are doing to help move away from paper and really ultimately make their employees and their processes ultimately more productive. With that, we're going to turn to events and look at all the opportunities that you have coming up to get yourself trained and up to speed on everything that's going across Microsoft 365. The first event that we want to highlight is the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. And it's actually happening right now. It's the April 26th through the 28th. They've got a lot of great content planned, over 150 speakers, 300 plus sessions across a dozen localized languages in all time zones. So it's truly a true marathon of training, and it's one that I think you should absolutely dive into.
Also coming up later this week is the AIM conference, running April 27th to 29th. The AIM conference is virtual and also this year branded as intergalactic. It is really focused cross-industry and cross-vendor at looking at how does information get managed and used throughout an organization. So when we look at how busy this week is, we're really happy so many of these events are virtual.
Kicking off in May is the Ability Summit, May 5th through the 6th. This is a 2-day free digital event that brings together people with disabilities, allies, and accessibility professionals centered around the future of disability, inclusion, and accessibility. Our friend and CVP Jeff Teeper's got a session, along with a lot of great speakers and a lot of great content for that specific area.
Looking further into May, coming up on May 12th, Teams Nation. This is a full-day virtual event, 11 tracks, over 110 sessions, all about Teams. 100% free, 100% community-driven conference dedicated exclusively to Microsoft Teams.
Next one is a SharePoint Saturday, but it's on a Friday. Friday, May 14th is the Microsoft 365 Philadelphia show, or as they like to say, the M365 Philly show. A SharePoint Saturday is always a great way to plug in regionally. I'll actually be joining from afar. And as always, love supporting SharePoint Saturdays. Always check out their site for when the next SharePoint Saturday is coming.
With Philly coming up, longtime friend of the show, Matt Gilronan, will be sure to claim that he's attending the event on Saturday, giving him another excuse to drill in and watch his Phillies, who, for the record, are not the Boston Red Sox. And there is the gratuitous sports reference.
You knocked it out of the park. But to be clear, the Red Sox park.
Which is Fenway. Well done.
Thank you.
Also coming up later in May, Microsoft Build. This is a first-party event for us, for developers, solution creators. This is a great place to learn, connect, and code with your community. It's coming up on May 25th to 27th. And it's also, as a typical Microsoft Tier 1 event, a great place to watch for key news and announcements from across Microsoft 365 and beyond.
Shortly after that, June 1st through the 2nd, is a really great third-party event, the European SharePoint Conference 2021. This will be virtual. There are several Microsoft and MVP keynotes. There will be sessions, workshops, always a great event, always a great set of event leads that we work with, and we know there's going to be a lot of great content. Sad that it's virtual because they also always have great locations, and I know that will be around the corner, but don't miss June 1st through 2nd, tune in ESPC 21.
And then later in June, Microsoft 365 Collaboration Summit, June 8th to 10th. So this, optimistically, looking to the future, this is a hybrid event. So it'll be online, also being held live in Orlando, Florida, with a mix of sessions across Microsoft 365 Teams and Power Platform with sessions and keynotes and more. And as Mark and I were saying, we're really looking forward to moving beyond just the virtual realm and starting to join all of you and participate in many of these hybrid and physical events coming up soon. So if you have an event that you know about that we haven't featured on this show, please write to us. We would love to spotlight it in an upcoming episode. Well, Mark, once again, we've done it. We've put yet another episode of the IntraZone Partner Edition into the virtual books. So I want to thank our guests, Jason Burian from KnowledgeLake and Ty Iden from New Belgium Brewing.
We hope that you will check out our show page for links to all that we discussed today and more. You can go to aka.ms/theintrazone. If you're interested in other shows produced by Microsoft, check out aka.ms/Microsoft/podcasts. The page highlights about 18 podcasts across the spectrum of Microsoft technology and insights.
You can reach out to us via email, theintrazone@microsoft.com, or on Twitter, @SharePoint, @mcashman, and @cmcnulty2000.
Share the SharePoint love, follow the show wherever you get your podcasts, and through the lens of the New Belgium, it's the yeast you can do.
Thanks for the pun, and of course to you, thanks for listening. We're your hosts, Chris McNulty and Mark Cashman, and you've been listening to The IntraZone, a show about the Microsoft 365 partner, flat tire-powered intelligent intranet.